captain with Soccer Dave. He winds that clock down. That batter is going to be out by the fifth pick.
Just use your computer.
Hey, someone just sent me a message that they do a spreadsheet every week for DFS golf. Bam Bam.
Oh, who's that?
At Josh Gordon Browns, hilariously enough.
Shut up! You're making that up.
No,
Right,
I mean
3, 2. Davis, you go ahead and open the show up. 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fantasy Insiders TV. I'm your host, Soccer Dave. We're sponsored by FantasyElite. You can find their app in the iStore. Oh, wait, no, not the iStore. Wait, what is it? The App Store. I
You have to do a Soccer Dave voice, though.
Terrible impression.
I can't do a Soccer Dave voice.
Dave's voice of you is just absolutely atrocious.
It's really bad. It's not as good as the Leone voice.
You guys are both really good at the Leone voice, but the Soccer Dave or the Davis Maddock voice is just bad.
It is bad. But no, I'm Davis Maddock. I'm here with my two fantasy insiders, comrades, Mr. Tuttle 05, Dan Gasper, Derek Carty. We're going to talk about, I don't know, a pretty gross slate. I think there's going to be a lot of overlap, especially on FanDuel. I think there are some pretty obvious choices for people to make, but we're gonna work our way through it. I'm gonna do a fantasy elite draft with David. Gonna kick his butt if my phone stays on him. I'm at a 5% battery, so we're gonna see how many picks David can make before my phone dies. My guess is on 2 before he forgets that we're drafting and auto picks throughout the rest of the draft. Okay, so let's get started. Are there any weather concerns right now? I haven't pulled it up. I haven't looked at anything in a couple hours in terms of that. I've just been looking at the old lineups page.
It looks like there was a little bit in the Toronto-Boston thing, but it looks like it's kind of just like a window where there's like scattered thunderstorms, and then it'll be clearing out, around that. So maybe a delay, but I don't think you're on either of those pitchers anyway. So for the hitters, I think you're fine. It is kind of favorable knuckleball weather. It looks like humidity is relatively high, like 70%. There's some wind going. So Boston bats maybe aren't as good of a bet as they normally would be against Dickey in that kind of weather. Aside from that, I think there's no weather in any games that don't have like a roof that they can cover it up with. So,
all right, cool. Well, let's start the conversation that I'm sure most of Twitter has been having all day, and that most players have been having in their head. Madison Bumgarner versus Yu Darvish. So there are a couple things in play here. One, everybody had Pirates this weekend while they just slowly drained our will to live. I mean, watching Andrew McCutchen ground out to second or to short or to third or flying out to center field time after time after time hurt me on a personal level that I didn't know that sports could make me feel. I don't know if I've ever been more tilted by a Coors performance. Our buddy Drew Dinkmeyer has Coors data going all the way back to 2006. No team had gone scoreless through 2 games in Coors since the 2006 Oakland Athletics. And if Ike Davis didn't hit a pinch hit home run, which I think he did 2 times, right? Or there was a pinch hit home run and a pinch hit double. But basically the Pirates were the worst team in Coors over the last 8 years is what happened. The point of this being, everyone's going to roster Madison Bumgarner tonight, and I think that's maybe a little bit of a mistake, but I'm interested to see what Derek has to say, because I know that he's the top pitcher in your system tonight.
he is, but that's without a lineup yet, so that could change. But I do think it's tough because I think Yu Darvish is an elite play also, but he's going to cost you a lot more than Bumgarner, especially on FanDuel. So I think the way I'm leaning right now is I'm going to go Bumgarner on FanDuel, and then I'm going to go Darvish where he's only like 900 more, or like 1100 more, or something on DraftKings, along with like Odorizzi or Chavez or somebody.
Yeah, and see, I just think it's definitely Darvish after seeing this Yankees lineup. I mean, this is like the Yankees are a bad hitting team anyways because their best hitter is a 38-year-old with an elbow injury, or alternatively Brian McCann, who's also bad. So I think, Dan, you're sort of on my side that you think Darvish is the kind of the clear #1 pitching play.
Yeah, especially when the lineup came up and there's no Ellsbury in the lineup. I think. I mean, I was kind of trending towards Darvish, anyways. But once you saw Ellsbury was getting the day off, I think that boosts Darvish even more, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is a pretty weak lineup. And one of the things we were talking about a little bit this weekend that my system doesn't take into account yet is it still thinks McCann is kind of a decent hitter, even though McCann is getting shifted on so much this year. So it doesn't necessarily take that into account yet. So it thinks McCann's a little bit better, and that's going to, impact the way Darvish's projection turns out. So I do think that I would take Darvish over Bumgarner in a vacuum. Like if their price wasn't a thing, I would take Darvish first. But when Bumgarner's, 2K less on FanDuel, I do think there's a conversation to be had.
Yeah, and I mean, and Tuttle and I basically fight about this almost every single day. Tuttle and I basically never agree on the way to approach pitching on any site, honestly, whether it be DraftKings or FanDuel or whatever. But I think that dollars per point with pitchers basically doesn't matter at all. I think that you are simply trying to get the pitcher who gets the most points. I think that is like the whole entire target. And I think that Darvish scores the most points, especially on FanDuel or on DraftKings, where like having a bad whip kind of hurts you. I just think that and we saw it this weekend. Finally, yesterday, the Pirates can get to left-handed pitchers. I mean, they have Mercer, it's left-handed pitching well, even if you don't agree with that. But Harrison is good versus left-handed pitching. McCutchen is elite versus left-handed pitching. They have Gabby Sanchez, who is better against left-handed pitching than you think. And I haven't seen a lineup yet, but I met what they're probably going to go, eight righty, not including the pitcher versus Bumgarner, Derek?
Yeah, there's going to be at least 7 or 8 probably in there.
So I don't think I honestly think that this isn't even really a discussion for me in terms of FanDuel. I know that there are people out here who do sort of believe in dollars per point, but that requires a more scientific approach or projection for hitters, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I think too, like dollars per point, I think can be taken too far, and clearly Darvish is a better pitcher than Bumgarner, but Bumgarner is still like a fringe ace. So a fringe ace in a good matchup for, $2,000 less is still very tempting. It's not like we're talking about like Jacob deGrom in like a good matchup or something.
Whoa.
Not
Jacob
that
deGrom.
Listen, I like deGrom, all right? He's I've played him several times this year and I have no regrets about it. But it's not like we're talking about like a mediocre pitcher in a good matchup. Like Bumgarner is a good pitcher.
Yeah, and I mean, I have no problem admitting that some of that with me is sort of a recency bias, because I've had him in 2 of his starts before the All-Star break where he was pretty bad, and it was sort of this situation where I did take him over a Darvish or over before Tanaka got hurt. I just think that Darvish is the better pitcher, and I just think that that's the way I'm going. Especially, I mean, Francisco Cervelli is hitting 6 for the Yankees tonight. Like, I just think that this is actually a pretty easy call. Now, granted, there's a park advantage for Bumgarner.
Yeah, Bum's got the much better park. I think what it comes down to me is, strikeout potential. We see it every night where strikers are just so heavily weighted on these sites where really you can sacrifice a run or two if you're going to get the strikeout upside. And I think that's what Darvish brings. Bum's no slouch by any means. He can record a strikeout or 2 himself. But I think Darvish's upside against this lineup is just unrivaled tonight, that I don't mind paying an extra couple thousand for him on FanDuel by any means. Especially with, we've talked about it numerous times this year. FanDuel's cap, especially with hitters, is really soft this year. So you can get a reasonable lineup in with Darvish. You're not sacrificing much just to pitch Bumgarner, or to pitch Darvish over Bumgarner, I should say. So I think the upside is there.
Yeah, to get him in, you're really just sacrificing, basically, you're punting 1 extra spot. Like, instead of taking like Alcantara at second base, you're taking someone like Joe Panik or Rougned Odor instead, basically. And I don't really have a problem with that, TBH.
Yeah, or you're just going a little not as strong at your outfielder positions, which I know Derek thinks there's a lot of pretty solid cheap options tonight. I know he likes a lot of those Cubs guys. Ruggiano specifically.
Yeah, there's some good cheap outfielders tonight.
Junior Lake for the minimum, for example, just stuff like that. Okay, so we've basically gone through FanDuel, but I think as we sort of talked about, a lot of people are starting to get more action on DraftKings and on Draft Day now that with the Draft Street transition. So who do you like as sort of your cheaper second starting pitching option, Derek?
I think Odorizzi looks really nice tonight. He gets the home field advantage. Do we have a lineup there? Is it Molina catching or?
Yeah, it's Molina.
Yeah, it's Molina.
Okay, so that's definitely going to help him that it's Molina and not whoever their other guy is with Hannigan on the DL. Yeah, so with Molina catching at home in the Trop with the platoon basically against that entire lineup, I think Scooter's out tonight, right? Again?
No, he's in. He's
in?
just batting lower in the lineup.
Okay,
He's
yeah,
batting
he's
seventh.
batting seventh. Yeah, so Weeks is batting fifth for whatever reason. Okay.
I don't understand that one either.
He's DHing, bruh.
Still, I mean, you're gonna bat him ahead of Scooter. Okay, just helps Odorizzi more. I think there's definitely some risk there because I mean, anytime the Brewers are a good offense, but they're very right-handed. That doesn't mean they can't get to righties. But I like what I've seen of Odorizzi this year. I mean, I didn't see much of him before this year, so I don't know how his stuff compares, but his stuff has just looked really good this year. And I'm really buying into the strikeout rate, not to the extent that it's at, but like a batter per 9 for sure. So when he's at home in a good park with a good catcher, some good defense behind him, I like Odorizzi.
This is completely anecdotal, but you might be able to give me some reasoning behind it, Derek. I mean, anytime I watch Odorizzi pitch, and this isn't a knock on him by any means, but it does seem to raise up his pitch count a bit. I've never seen batters fall off a pitcher more than Odorizzi. Is that just because of the stuff he offers, or is there even anything to that?
What do you mean fall off a pitcher more?
I mean, they make them opposing batters. It seems can work his pitch count up pretty easily. I've never seen a guy.
There is a reason for that. Jason Klett did a piece about it on the Process Report, and it's. I don't remember if it was about the way his slider breaks. I don't remember what it was, but basically his ERA went like the first time he goes through the lineup, it's really good. The second time it spikes, and then the third time he goes through the order, his ERA is like 8 or something like that. I don't remember what it was, but there's like a real technical reason for that.
I didn't know if it was just his pitches don't have as much movement on it or what the reasoning was, but it seems like hitters can just work up his pitch count. I mean, it obviously hasn't affected results as of late, but it was just an anecdotal thing that I've seen when watching him pitch this year. It just seems like I've never seen hitters get as many foul balls as they have.
Yeah, I'd be curious to read that Collette article. I mean, I'm not sure exactly.
I will go find it and post it in chat.
Yeah. And it could be, too. I mean, he's a young pitcher. He's still learning how to pitch. So it could just be a little bit of inefficiency related to that.
Well, also, he's a prospect from the Kansas City organization, so he's just terrible. Like, at some level, he's, like, still trying to get the terribleness out of him. Like,
Hey, he was a Brewer first.
Oh, well, then, I mean, I
think
guess
you guys
maybe...
got Escobar trade, I think.
Yeah, he wasn't. That is what happened. He wasn't like so. He wasn't born with the terribleness. Like he wasn't brought into professional baseball with it. But anytime you go into that Kansas City organization, you get some form of baseball sickness. Go ahead.
Yeah. Now, while you're looking that up, I think the other guy you want to look at is Jesse Chavez.
Yeah.
He's not in Oakland, which isn't great. But Houston I mean, they're a high variance offense, but they're missing a few guys. Marwin Gonzalez is batting second tonight. Springer's on the DL. Even their lefties that they're stacking with, normally they're very right-handed, but even the lefties they have in tonight to try and get the platoon against them aren't very good, like Mark Krause and Robbie Grossman. So
you hold your tongue, Derek. No,
Grossman's decent, but like Krause is not really.
This is one of the times when I opened up
Marwin's terrible.
He's very bad. This is one of the times when I opened up our Skype chat this morning and I said, Dan, I already know I'm going to play Chavez. Please don't hound me about this all day long. He's a minus 200 favorite. Go ahead.
It's funny you say that because I'm not a huge fan of Chavez tonight. The more you said that right when I was getting done watching my son for the day, so I hadn't done looked a whole lot at today's slate. And the guy that I think that's getting overlooked, and it's going to require you to spend a little more on pitching than some people might feel comfortable. But I might be slotting Jordan Zimmerman as my number 2. He's had a couple tough games the last 2 starts he's had, but I mean the matchup is there. You can't really ask for a much better matchup for 9,300, and you're getting a skilled pitcher to boot.
I mean, he's only 1,300 more than Zimmerman or than Chavez. So, like looking at my lineup right now, that would basically be like either punting off of Starlin Castro at shortstop or not taking one of Cespedes or Donaldson would get me Zimmerman pretty easily on DraftKings. And I actually think Darvish Zimmerman might be sort of the winning combination. Like, I mean, we've seen it the last several days where everyone was so off on the hitting with everyone in Coors kind of sucking that just getting your starting pitching right basically cashed you in double ups the last several days.
Yeah, this weekend has, I mean, shown to me at least, especially with hitting going cold, that on DraftKings, I mean, if you get those 2 pitchers right on DraftKings, you can cash double ups. I think I had Sal. Who was the other big starter going on Chris Sale's night? Why can't I remember this?
It was,
I think that was
Kirsch.
Yeah. I had Sale Kirsch on DraftKings. I think I had one batter who got positive points, and I cashed pretty much everything I played in. So I think it shows the importance of hitting your pitchers right on DraftKings. I think you had a similar lineup like that too, Derek.
Yeah, I don't think it was Kershaw that night. I think it was like someone.
Sale's most recent start happened on the Kershaw night because Sale went 8 innings and struck out 12, and Kershaw went complete game shutout, but he only struck out 7.
I think you had Sale someone else, but you still had a similar.
I did. I think I had Liriano that night who did really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that night I think I wouldn't have needed a single hitting point to double up.
Yeah.
There was also the Felix Price night where if you took both of those guys, your hitters could have, because that was the first Pirates night when everyone. It was actually really funny on FanDuel. In the double ups, the Pirates' own percentages fell about 10% every day. Like Mercer was like 68% on the first day. He was about 50% the next day, and yesterday he was like 20% owned in some of my double ups.
Well, and the pitching actually got progressively worse for Colorado too, ending with Franklin Morales. Which is funny.
Who had been Cy Morales versus the Dodgers and one other team. I can't remember the other team, but had gone full on Cy Morales, which was disappointing. Obs. Okay, that's probably all that we need to talk about in terms of pitching. Like not gonna take Fatolo, even though Dan thinks I probably want to.
You do want to.
I mean, part of me does.
I think there's enough other options where you don't have to look at him tonight, even if his matchup is decent-ish.
Yeah, no, he's sort of off the board. I mean, people in chat are making fun. Apparently, there's a dream catcher behind me, so people in chat are making fun of me about that. I'm in my girlfriend's room, so I can't really control.
Love those dream catchers, bro.
You can't use the girlfriend's room excuse for that hat, though, Davis. You're getting torn apart on Twitter.
I don't care, bro. This is too nice, man. I haven't worn this bucket hat in like a week and a half, and I miss it. It was the worst part of moving was I didn't know where my bucket hat was.
My favorite comment was simply, "Is that a bonnet?"
Is that a bonnet? Which is actually that is my boss who just asked if that was a bonnet. Okay, let's talk about hitting though. So starting off with stacks, I mean, is there even a team that you're looking to stack other than the Oakland Athletics today? None of these teams really. I guess probably the Cubes, Derek.
Yeah. What's the win looking like there? Earlier today, it didn't look like it was doing a whole lot, but I think the Cubs are a really good team to stack just because Johan Flande is just so awful. And Wrigley's a good park, even with winds kind of milder.
It looks like 10 blowing in.
Yep.
Okay, that's a little more extreme. Yeah, that's a little more extreme than it was earlier. It was like 5 or 6. But
well, it's blowing like across the field.
Yeah.
I think it's blown in from left. It looks like.
Yeah.
So, I still think Cubs, especially the cheaper ones, and especially at the more shallow positions like Starlin at shortstop or Giano in the outfield. I think a little mini Cub stack could work. There's actually a lot of good catching options today, or else Castillo would be on my radar. But I do think if you are going with a Cubs stack, then he's a guy you can include in there.
So, and Baker's actually in over Castillo today.
Oh, okay. Alcantara in the middle infield at second or wherever he qualifies.
He's so expensive. It sucked. He was awesome when he was min priced.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he's still
that.
3,200 on FanDuel, it looks like. On DK, what is he, like?
Oh, wow. Shortstop just got a lot deeper because Jed Lowry is leading off for the Athletics.
It didn't get deeper. It just, there ceased to exist a problem. I mean, it's Lowry now, and just go on.
Okay,
I mean,
it was Starlin for me before. Now Lowry's going to enter the conversation.
I don't know how I feel about Vogt batting second versus lefty.
Oberholzer. Yeah, that's weird.
Oh,
yeah, I see why they did it though. I mean, there's not a whole lot you're gonna do to move around.
Well, and Kai Espo is off the DL, so he's DHing, and Jaso has been hurt, and now that they're against a lefty, he's probably just gonna get the day off.
Yeah, he's not in there.
He won't pinch hit or anything. Honestly, it's kind of annoying that Kai Espo is off the DL because this sort of like there's going to be less predictability to the A's lineup day to day now, which kind of bums me out. Okay, yeah, let's just start talking about positions then. Let's talk about catchers. I mean, I assume that you guys have different opinions, but like I'm just locking Norris in. He's the cheapest part of that A's stack that you can slot in everywhere. He's 32 on FanDuel. He's 39 on DraftKings. A lot of the other catching options are pretty pricey. Who else are you looking at, Dan?
I mean, the next obvious guy is obviously Rosario. I'm actually in agreement with you, though. I think a lot of guys are going to be going Rosario over Norris, but I think I like Norris. He's going to presumably be in better run-producing situations. So while Rosario has more raw power, Norris should have more opportunities to actually hit with runners in scoring position. So I think his upside is significantly more than Rosario. Then you have the added win coming in with Rosario. And if you look at Vegas, that team total, the Rockies team total is only at, I think, like 3.5 and juiced on the under, which was surprising to me. So Vegas doesn't expect them to do a whole lot. So I think Rosario is an option, but I'm with you, Davis. I like Norris more.
I like both of those guys. I think I'm going to split them. I think I'll have Rosario probably on FanDuel and Norris on DraftKings. I like both of them. I think as a contrarian guy that no one's going to be looking at is Mesoraco. But I think those are kind of the three that I'm looking at.
Yeah, I don't mind the other side in that Cincinnati game with Montero. It looks like batting fifth. I don't love it, but I think if you're shying away from Rosario Norris, then yeah, I think you just take a catcher in the Cincinnati game.
I wish that there was a way to like reasonably afford Goldschmidt in a lineup with Darvish tonight, but there's just like not a way to do it responsibly. But I think Goldschmidt has a huge night. So I am interested to what you guys think about what to do with second base, because I basically haven't found any second baseman on any site that I think is both a combination of a good play and a reasonable price. I mean, I like Alcantara, obviously, but he is not exactly in the most favorable price situation. So I don't really know what to do with second base. I mean, who do you like, Derek?
Second base is just so gross today. Like this is one of the ugliest second base days we've had in a while. I think I'm probably going to be going Alcantara or Rutledge, but I like Alcantara more. It's not like he's like ridiculously overpriced. He's not minimum price anymore because he's not a minimum price player. Like he's a good player who's got a medium price and is in a good matchup, or at least a good matchup relative to the rest of the field today. So he's the guy that I tentatively have in all my lineups right now.
Why hasn't Rougned Odor ever batted higher than like seventh?
If he could bat higher up in the order, like he would definitely be like a legit good option today. But batting eighth or ninth today, yeah, it's just you can't do it.
Yeah,
and it sucks.
Give me a good second base play, Dan.
I don't have any good ones. I think that the top punt option is someone that Derek wrote up today, and that's Valdespin batting second again for Miami tonight. Even though I do like Zimmerman, I think if you're it is a good night to just simply punt second base, and if that's what you're going to do, I think Valdespin's a good option. The other option I like on FanDuel, specifically for his price, would be Pedroia for 2,900. He's cheaper than what Alcantara. I like Pedroia better on FanDuel.
I was gonna write up Pedroia, and then the weather kind of scared me off of Red Sox a little bit, since that might help the Knuckler play up the way the weather's looking like it's gonna turn out. But I mean, I couldn't blame you for going with Pedroia, just because there's gonna be risk with whatever second baseman you go with today.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly my reasoning. Is I don't want to pay for the risk of Pedroia for 4,500 on DraftKings, but for 2,900 on FanDuel, I think it's a reasonable option.
I mean, I literally don't like any of these players. Like, I wish that I could just see, the thing on DraftKings is you can play Valdespin batting second. You can, like, there are a couple guys you can move around in there. None of that can happen on FanDuel. Like, you're locked into guys who are batting like 8th in the order, basically. Because I don't think I want to play Pedroia either, just because of what Derek said. And I don't like to pick on Dickey with righties anyways. I think like, I'm much more likely to take a lefty versus him, just because I think there is some merit to that with the knuckleball. Yeah. In terms of shortstop, though, I mean, Dan already like answered that question. Like, Lowry leading off, I don't even know how you get away from that.
I think you get away. Well, Starlin is pretty cheap too, so I think those are your two options tonight for sure. I don't think Lowry's a slam dunk. I probably will wind up with him in at least some of my lineups, but I think Starlin is a very viable option too, just because I feel like Wrigley's an underrated field in general. The wind that's starting to blow in a little bit stronger is going to probably take me off him a little bit, but Flande is just so bad, like so bad. Like, he uses his fastball 65% of the time, and it just does nothing. It's just straight, it gets no rise, there's no life to it at all. And it's just terrible. And he uses a slider against righties as much as he uses his changeup, which is actually a decent pitch. So, I don't know. I just think he's terrible.
I mean, go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say, the difference between the two, again, for me, just comes down to the production that I see Oakland putting up offensively as opposed to the Cubs as a whole. So I think, I think Castro's probably got a better matchup individually, but I think the combination of Lowry's matchup plus those guys batting behind him in the offense I see Houston putting up makes me think Lowry will get more points total.
I like that. Although I think Vaught, or how do you pronounce his name? Stephen Vogt?
It's like vote. Like, I'm voting.
Okay.
I hate that he is batting second.
Yeah, him batting second is like, that could end up screwing Lowry over a couple times, but
except the problem is
like Lowry.
He's a baller.
Yeah, but against the lefty,
I might hate him because he's starting to take
playing time away.
Yeah. So that might mean that I have to like switch my allegiances up. No, I mean, I think that's a good question, and this is a lot of the times why I'm okay playing Mercer, like when he's like batting 7th or something. Because if a dude hits a home run, you don't care what his like how many runs he scores or whatever. Like, he's met value, he's performed for you already. But so that's sort of the argument tonight, is you're taking like Castro like donging or just like having like 4 doubles or something crazy like that off of Flande. Or you're hoping that Lowry just like singles, walks, hit by pitch, as well as all the same like upside that Castro. Like, Castro is the better upside to like hit a home run or just do raw batting statistics, but Lowry has more upside for team statistics like RBIs and runs scored.
And I want to take this opportunity to promote Derek's a new addition that we have on Nappy here. It looks like the exclude player with cold streak function is available, and the first guy I'm seeing on the list that has a cold streak is Starlin Castro. So can you tell the users the criteria behind what a cold streak is?
So cold streak, let me pull up the exact criteria. Okay. Cold streak looks at what a hitter's done over the past 3 weeks in terms of weighted on base average, and if he's been performing at a rate that's how do I explain this in not so mathy terms?
No, just explain it. It's 100 points lower than their expected weighted on base average.
It's 85% or lower than his projected context neutralized weighted on base average. And then over the past week, if they've been within 5% of their weighted on base average, they don't get a cold streak flag because they might be coming out of it.
Okay. So Castro was the first. I just went over to the optimizer tool. I clicked exclude players with cold streak, and Castro was the first one that came up.
So then maybe that gives Lowry like even more of a potential edge if you have them close. So Lowry will probably wind up in more of my lineups. And it's not like the cold streak flag, like that's something you need to stick to like hard and fast. It's like an option for you because,
we had this conversation with Davis.
Yeah, like it's there as an option. It's there for you to look at. But it's not by any means like completely rigorous and scientific. It's just to say, okay, like to alert you to a guy to maybe look into further. Like this guy there might be something wrong with him mechanically, or something is happening in his personal life or whatever. So you might want to think about excluding him. It's not like you have to do it.
Okay. Just real quick before we get started, or before we move to the corners, Christopher Negron. He's popped up for me a couple times using the optimizer tool today. I basically know nothing about him. What is your system's opinion on him, Derek? And is he like a play?
I know very little about him. I think
he donged in his first game called up in the lineup.
Did he? Is he a legit prospect? I haven't heard of him.
I know as much as you do.
I don't know anything about him. And the system still, we're still probably a couple weeks away at least from minor league data being in there. So guys like that are going to get very conservative projections. So I think conservative projection plus Great American Ballpark is going to put his projection pretty high, even though I don't know if he necessarily deserves it. I don't know anything about him. So.
Well, I'm guessing, is he putting in your DraftKings lineup at shortstop?
No, FanDuel lineup at second base.
Okay, but I mean that speaks to the position depth. I think in both. I mean we already talked about how nasty second base is, so there you go. But he's also only 2,200 and shortstop eligible on DraftKings, so there's an option for you as well. I mean it's a guy that we don't really know what to expect, but at a position that's not great today, that you could do worse than spending your money elsewhere.
It's not like Chase Anderson's a good pitcher.
No,
exactly. And it's a great ballpark. I mean, he has all the contextual factors going in his favor. It's just a matter of his skill set.
That's basically what the system is seeing, is that he has a pretty good matchup, and a guy with a conservative projection in a good matchup at a shallow position at such a cheap price, could potentially work its way into an optimal lineup. I'm
gonna go ahead and say right now the team that wins you a GPP tonight, because they're gonna be way under-owned, is the Arizona Diamondbacks. I just sort of looking at this lineup, like I like 1 through 5. I like all of those hitters. I like Inciarte more than his Zips projects better than he's been. Peralta's pretty good. Goldschmidt is obviously one of the best hitters in baseball. I've always liked Trumbo, and I'm sort of warming up to that Montero pick, Dan.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, I can see that as like an under the radar stacking kind of thing.
Except Derek has this saber boner for Homer Bailey though, because his xFIP says that he should be way better.
No, not necessarily. I mean,
no. I know that in general, saber nerds. Not that I'm not one and should be able to say that at all. I have this break.
Homer Bailey's way better than what he's performed to this point. Like he's not an above 4 ERA pitcher. He's like mid to high 3s. So
yeah, but there were some who called him like a non-Kershaw Cy Young vote getter, which is ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know nearly like that. He's probably like a 3.75, 3.80 ERA kind of pitcher.
Yeah. Yes, Dan.
I was just gonna say we got a question in chat. What's wrong with Bonifacio?
What's wrong?
As far as having him as a second base option. For me, it's because he loses upside.
No, go ahead.
The reason why I'm kind of passing on him, I think he's got a good price on DraftKings. I don't have a problem using him, but I think a lot of his upside is brought on by speed, and with a left-handed pitcher on the mound, that negates a lot of his stolen base potential.
And I think Rosario's pretty good at throwing out runners, right?
I don't know exact numbers, but yeah, I mean he's middle of the
above
road
average,
at
I
worst.
think.
Yeah.
He's not a bad defensive catcher. Like he's not Mike McHenry or anything.
No, he's not
Yeah.
like good framing, but I think his arm is pretty good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, like on FanDuel, like they're both second base, right? Him and Alcantara. So
And you just like Alcantara better.
yeah.
Well, as you should. TBH. Okay, let's talk about the corner slots then. They're like other than Goldschmidt, none of these first basemen really jumped out at me today. So like I think I'm probs just punting with like Dan Johnson or like Mark Krause on FanDuel.
It's disappointing Dan Johnson's not in the lineup, so that's kind of the direction I was thinking too.
Damn,
He's not.
son.
That is disappointing. I think Lucas Duda is a decent, like, lower priced alternative to like a David Ortiz or a Paul Goldschmidt today.
Who did you say?
Lucas Duda. He's batting cleanup for the Mets. They got 20-mile-per-hour winds blowing out to right field. He's going to have the platoon against Burnett, who has kind of been on and off this year, but more off than on, and he's had some homer issues in the past, even if that's not necessarily a thing that's bothering him right now. He's still an above-average pitcher at best, and Duda has a huge true platoon split. So between that, the wind, home field advantage, a good spot in the lineup, I think for his price, he's a good option.
My contribution to this conversation is Mike Morse's price tag on FanDuel.
I saw that. It's like $2,300, right?
Yeah, and he's been a $2,300 player as of late, but like for his career, he's a better player than that. And not like Vance Worley's any good. Like, sure, maybe he's had some nice performances this year, but he's not a good pitcher. So
Yeah.
I might just say screw it and do the righty thing with Mike Morse. I mean, I do own a Mike Morse jersey.
Oh my gosh! You're gonna take a hitter not named Miguel Cabrera that doesn't have the platoon advantage?
First of all,
That is
I
so
will
Oh
not
my
make-
gosh!
I wouldn't even do that. I wouldn't even do that with Mickey. In fact, I don't do that with Mickey. Like one of the only I'll do it in cores if it's righty. I won't do lefty in cores, and then I'll do it with Trout sometimes on a day when like the best starting pitcher is really cheap.
Morse
What about-
does have a relatively high platoons, like relatively like wide platoon split for righties, like in terms of righties. But I do think there's a lot of value to be had there at that price.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not crazy about it, and I might play Krause instead, just because.
Yeah, just play your boy Krause. Good lineup spot, good park.
I can't tell if you're goading me right now or if you're.
I'm not. I think he's a legit option tonight. I really do with how bad first base. Well, not how bad, but how you basically have two. I think Ortiz and Goldie are your top options, but they're expensive, which might be hard to fit in with a guy like you, Darvish, in your lineup. So I think another thing is to punt this position too.
I don't hate Rizzo either, although
Yeah,
it looks
that's
like
what I was
he's
gonna say.
pretty expensive.
He is pretty expensive, but
Yeah, he's really expensive now. But
not because I think he's gonna dong off Flande, but because I think the rest of the lineup is so good against lefties that they knock him out pretty quick and get to the right-handers in the pen.
and the pen is terrible.
Yeah. So if you're looking for sort of an off the radar tournament, and not like Rizzo and Stanton or whatever are like ever off the radar because like they can just if any pitcher makes a mistake to them, like it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
Rizzo
I think Rizzo
is
has to be in that conversation with Ortiz and Goldschmidt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my two kind of mid-range options, we had Chandler mention one in chat, LaRoche versus Eovaldi. I don't hate that one. And he's been horrible this year, but if you want to try to play those wins in New York, Ryan Howard, I don't absolutely hate for his price.
Yeah. I don't hate that at all either. Okay. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good on that with first base. Third base, I mean Beltre, just because David Phelps kind of sucks, I guess.
Wait,
if you want.
How is Beltre the first third baseman you're mentioning?
Yeah.
I was gonna mention him, but I was gonna say this: if you're not playing Donaldson in cash games, you're a dunk. Yeah.
You're a dunk.
No, it's just like Donaldson has like this like obscene weighted on base average versus left-handed pitching. The cold flag isn't there in Batman today, so he had that crazy hitless streak for a while, but he's good.
He's
now.
been doing a little better. So yeah. Donaldson's easily the top option today. Beltre is also really good, even though he doesn't have the platoon against Phelps. Phelps is not a good pitcher, and it's in a good park. I don't know. I think I agree with you. I think where you can fit Donaldson into your lineup, you do it, or Beltre. But after that, I mean, Todd Frazier's decent. I think Arenado's in a pretty good spot. Then it kind of gets a little sketchier.
Yeah.
Dan Johnson being out of the lineup pushed, I assume pushed Juan Francisco into an actually good spot. He's batting cleanup today against Buchholz.
He is, yeah. So, yeah, for sure. What's his price look like now? I feel like I haven't played him in forever.
He's 28 on FanDuel. And
39 on DraftKings.
Yeah, so then he gives you that first base eligibility on DraftKings, too, which is nice.
Yeah, so he's definitely a solid, cheaper option.
Okay. I'm pretty good.
Well, Arenado, too, I guess we could probably mention.
Yeah, I threw his name in there. He's definitely got it. He's probably my third or fourth option tonight after Beltre and Donaldson.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about outfield, because I feel like outfield is actually a position where a lot of people are having to have like real choices, because especially on DraftKings, where some of those cheap outfielders like Valdespin are available at some other positions. First of all, if you have to choose between Cespedes, whose jersey I'm wearing right now, or Donaldson, which one are you choosing, Dan?
Oh, that's a tough question. I haven't looked over the outfield pool too closely on DraftKings, but outfield's generally deeper, so I'm going to go Donaldson, even though I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I would lean too. I think Francisco makes it more of a conversation, I think, because there is a lower priced alternative to Donaldson now. But I still think I would go Donaldson and then some cheaper outfielders, because it's usually not too hard to find those kind of guys.
It was a trick question. The answer is if you fade either one of them. Yeah, you got to just find. Like
it's hard to find the money though, especially if you're playing Darvish. Like they're both really expensive.
Oh,
that's the thing.
Son, my lineup has Mark Krause and Jim Adducci in it.
It's going to end well.
Adducci's actually a pretty decent, I think, like punt outfield play tonight, as he normally is in these kinds of matchups. Like he always plays in good hitters' parks. They play him with the platoon advantage. They hit him in the middle of the order. So when he's up against a bad pitcher like that, he's always going to be an option because he's so cheap and because he's not a bad player.
I can almost guarantee that Junior Lake goes 0 for 4 with 3 Ks tonight, though, especially against Flande, because he's just a mystery. Junior Lake makes no sense at all. But he's min-priced on FanDuel, batting 7th versus Flande. That's a pretty good min-price outfielder.
It is.
Yeah.
I like Ruggiano more. I think Ruggiano's a better player in general. I think Ruggiano's almost a must. He's more expensive, but I think he's a must-play because his matchup is really good, and because even though he's more expensive, he's still very reasonably priced.
Wait, hold on, Derek. So are you saying that you believe in the fact that he's pretty meh against right-handed pitching, but very good against left-handed pitching? Is that what I'm hearing from you right now?
Not necessarily. I mean, he's.
Would you ever play him against a right-handed pitcher, though? Would you ever be like, oh, he's like a must-play?
I don't know if I'd call him a must-play against a right-hander. Platoon splits are a real thing. That's not what we're arguing.
I think what gets misconstrued
is Ruggiano's true platoon split is going to probably be a little smaller than you're probably going to assume it is. But if anything, then if you're thinking that his platoon split is even bigger, then he's even more of a must-play today.
What were you saying, Dan?
Nothing.
No, enter the fray, bro.
No, I'm going to let you two battle this one out.
Davis is like trying to set me up for something.
Yeah. I was just saying.
Sure what, but
I feel like what Derek says gets misconstrued a lot regarding platoon splits. I just feel like it's because he's not saying there's not a platoon split. Whenever he talks, he's talking about the differences in platoon splits, whether they're big or small. And I feel like a lot of people take that. Not you necessarily, Davis. I'm just saying I feel like a lot of people take that as to Derek not believing in platoon splits, which isn't the case.
Not the case even at all. Platoon splits and platoon advantage is enormously important. It's just I think they're very tricky.
Except for when it comes to Jordy Mercer.
They're very tricky to analyze properly,
No, I
as
know.
Jordy Mercer shows. Because if you look at just his like versus left-handed pitcher versus right-handed pitcher, or whatever it is, like it's huge, and the other one's terrible. But like he's doing it in such a small sample size, and you can't just look at one versus the other. He's not a different player. You have to look at both.
I want him to never record a hit versus right-handed pitching for like the rest of his career, but slug
But that
like
won't happen because
1200.
that's not a thing.
I want him to do it though, is what I'm telling you. Is I want Jordy Mercer to just be like this case study in like terribleness, basically. Someone that came up for me on the optimizer who I hadn't really looked at but got me thinking about the Diamondbacks was Mark Trumbo. He's like, I don't think I would use him in a cash game because he is sort of volatile because he's one of those big power, high K guys. But I think Trumbo is someone when I go to set tournament lineups here in a little bit, I'm actually going to try and work in, especially on FanDuel where he's 2,900. That power is definitely going to play in a park like GAB that just is so good for home runs.
Yeah, there's definitely a chance he, goes 0 for 4 with a couple strikeouts. Like he's a little bit of a high variance type of guy. But if he makes contact, that park is just great for a guy with his kind of power.
Yeah.
Even without the platoon.
All right. Are there any other outfielder guys that you want to mention, Dan?
Well, you're on the Diamondbacks. I don't mind the other guys for cheap. NCRT is what, 2,700 on DraftKings. I think that's a really good value for him there.
Mm-hmm.
Peralta is also cheap over there, 3,500. So I don't mind. If you have to punt an outfield spot, I don't mind either of those guys.
Yeah,
I think Grant. Go ahead.
NCRT is just a great play to me.
I like him tonight. I think Granderson, he's not as cheap as like a guy like NCRT, but with that wind blowing out and with the platoon and home field advantage, I think he's a really good play tonight for kind of a mid-level price tag.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. Okay, let's wrap. Kitchen, are you here or no? He's not here.
Jordan Case mentions Jay Bruce in chat. He's a guy that comes up as a cold streak, and he's been just awful this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But
like unusably bad.
the matchup is really good, but he has just been really bad lately. I think I might fade him.
It almost makes you. I mean, he's one of those guys, and again, bringing up the point of why you would use the exclude players with cold streaks. I mean, everyone goes through a cold streak, but it's basically like Derek mentioned. You want to look and see if there's something wrong with their technique, or if there's some sort of injury, some reasoning for why they're on the cold streak, as opposed to just random variance. And with Jay Bruce, I think it's pretty clear that there's a reason behind the cold streak. I mean, there's something wrong there. I don't know what it is, but there's something wrong there.
I think one guy who doesn't have a cold streak flag today after having one forever is Shin-Soo Choo, and he's high ranked today, and his matchup is really good. But even though he doesn't have the cold streak flag, he's still a guy I'm probably going to continue to fade because he is playing through basically. He admitted he should have went on the DL in April because of his ankle injury, and he's been playing through it, and it's been affecting him. And even though he's been good for the past few days, that's not to trust him again.
I'll fade Shin-Soo Choo like it is my job. I will continue to fade him and Carlos Beltran every single night when they come up in the optimizer.
And
Every
Beltran too. He's playing through an injury. He's got a bone spur in his elbow. So I mean, that's not the kind of thing that a projection system can take into account. At least not yet.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's guarantee some dongs, fellas. Daniel, you first.
Guaranteed. Should I take the low-hanging fruit?
Definitely. Because I'll take the other one. Donaldson, for sure. Derek?
Yeah, Donaldson is definitely an option tonight. I think top guy, I'll probably go. Well, I'll go Goldschmidt because as like an obvious one. As more under the radar, I'll take Reggiano.
Solid. I'm gonna go Cespedes, obviously, since I'm wearing the jersey, and Mark Krause. Mark Krause hanging dong, faux show. Who's your under the radar, Dan?
Derek Norris.
That's not under the radar.
Yeah, it is.
Nick Punto would be under the radar.
Derek Norris is under the radar.
I don't know.
Everyone's gonna be on him.
No, everybody's gonna be on Wheeling.
Dumb.
Really,
IMHO.
Rosario. Fine, you guys pick some other ones, and I'll find one. Fine.
David
Christopher Negron. Boom. Did it.
David Peralta would be one for me. Platoon against Bailey.
Yeah, I can see that.
Kitchen, guarantee us some dongs, bro.
I will go. I'm not feeling too good about our elite draft. I mean, good enough to beat you, but not enough to where I feel comfortable about it. But I say under the radar, Aducci. He's been pretty solid, and batting fifth in that lineup against Phelps
Toads Aducci, bro.
in Arlington. I feel like he's the guy I would target. As far as like an obvious play, would Ortiz count as an obvious play?
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
So those would be my two.
I heard on the internet today that he has good PvP.
Don't.
He knew it.
This was such a clean show before you
it
brought.
matters more for knuckleballers too.
Yeah.
Such a clean show before you brought BVP onto it. You just dirtified
I mean, I've
it.
heard BVP is a real thing, though.
By the way, for those keeping track, Ben Revere hit a second deck home run in BP. So maybe the wind is a thing in New York.
yeah, I was gonna mention Duda as another like under the radar donger type of guy.
For sure. I can vibe with that.
Very nice. All right, well, thanks to Mr. Tuttle 05, Dan Gasper, Davis Maddock, and Derek Carty, all from FantasyInsiders.com. Playing around with this optimizer with the cold flag. It basically, like I said, I pointed out in Skype chat, but it's like an eye-opener to some of these guys that have been cold lately that you might want to stay away from, or it basically gives you another option. And that's what we like about this optimizer tool. It doesn't just flat out give you, here's a lineup, don't mess with it at all. Like you want to play around with it. You want to, like we say, massage the optimizer. And this gives you just another way to do the massage. So
You're talking so dirty, Dave. I like it.
is massage dirty?
The way you're saying it, there's like some sultriness to it.
There is.
Oh, a massage. Oh. Oh, oui. So you want a massage. I just went from French to Oriental in the same sentence. That's how I do. Thanks for these guys for hosting the Fantasy Insiders Daily Fantasy MLB show, sponsored by Fantasy Elite, the app in the App Store. And again, try out the dashboard on the web if you are bored. FantasyElite.com/dashboard. You will need to remember your password, Davis Maddock.
What does that mean? I don't know. What?
It means that you didn't remember. You don't know your password, so you can't draft online.
What's a password? I don't even know.
A password is like what you learn right after forgot password for when you forget your password.
Yeah, I need to DM Grant and get that. I can still do it on my phone, though.
Yeah. Totes, bro. Totes. Don't worry about it.
Totes.
Totes. Well, swag, guys. Thanks for joining us tomorrow. 5 p.m. Eastern. We'll be back. It's going to be a big slate of games again, so tune in 5 Eastern, and hopefully we'll have some good stuff to offer you. Davis, are you growing a beard?
I mean, I just haven't shaved in a while.
No.
It's been like 2 months.
No, you've shaved your upper lip, right?
I mean, I shaved the chin beard that I was rocking in
But you shaved the mustache.
At SF. Maybe. I don't remember. TBH.
And
I mean, even if I didn't, I mean, if I'm gonna be real honest with you guys, this grows in pretty blonde up there.
yeah, the
Natro in chat just called you Amish Matic. I like it.
That's pretty good.
Oh, I wish I had that song queued up, Amish Paradise, to take us out. But I don't. So we'll see you tomorrow, 5 Eastern. Later, guys.